Hello everyone, this is Nayiri from Low Carb and Fasting. Okay, there are a few of us on screen today, and you're going to meet them one by one. However, our guest today, let's start with the guest. He has a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences. She also holds a master's in nutrition, and her focus was on molecular nutrition. And she currently works as a nutrition coach, and she works specifically with people who are suffering food addictions, specifically sugar addictions. And what's remarkable about her is that during the COVID lockdowns, and she's in New Zealand, so during the lockdowns, she was offering free coaching sessions to people who'd lost their jobs or who were suffering mental health issues and their livelihoods and families were lost, etc. So she's a remarkable lady and experienced and very knowledgeable. Pim Jansson from New Zealand. Welcome to Low Carb and Fasting.
Thank you so much for having me here. Those were some kind words. I was like, where did you get this information? Did I tell you that?
LinkedIn, it's all on your LinkedIn. It's all on your LinkedIn. Okay, so moving on, let me move on. Okay, so we have Terry Abbott from Miami. Terry's a member in one of my Facebook groups. She's a type 1 diabetic like me, and we both do fasting, and we communicate back and forth about how to maintain normal blood sugars. So Terry's going to be helping us with questions today. Terry, do you want to say hello? Hello?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here to be with everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
Next, we have Jenny Binet from Canada.
Yeah, Quebec, Canada.
Jenny is particularly interested in spreading information on the carnivore, particularly the carnivore diet, to the French-speaking community in Canada, because a lot of the information that's accessible to all of us is in English, not much of it in French. So that's what she's passionate about. Jenny, say hello.
Yes, hello. Nice to be here with you, and thank you for accepting me.
And last but not least, we have Mariana from London, UK.
Hello everyone. Hello, Pim. And I'm really, really excited to join. Thank you, Nayiri, for giving me this opportunity. And I don't have diabetes, but I must confess, I am addicted to carbs and sugars. And I'm just on this journey, and let's see where it takes me. But I've started with the intermittent fasting over a year ago, and it's going really well.
So it's really exciting for me to have all these people from all over the world, literally. And some of us have addiction issues, as Mariana just put her hand up and, she said, I'm seeking help and information. So Pim, I've been doing coaching for a few years now. When I first started, I did not realize, I absolutely did not realize the severity of the food addiction issue. I knew of it as something that perhaps just a few people suffered from. Boy, was I wrong. So I soon discovered that, it would be usually hidden. I'd be meeting with a client for a couple of sessions, and then I'd be wondering, why is she not able to do this? This is just just one thing to do for 1 week. And she's struggling. And then it would come to surface. And not many people used to confess. Going back a few years ago, there was that guilt and shame around it. So I'm really happy that we're opening up as a society now. And we're talking more of the issue, because unless we acknowledge that there is this issue in our societies, we're not going to be so able to address and solve the problem. Pim, what are your thoughts about that? Are you happy that we're now more open about this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the first step is to become aware of that it's a problem. And I think as a society, we like to normalize our disordered eating as as a group, because food has been used for so many years to celebrate, to do, all of the things. But now we have celebrations every day. And we also have super processed foods, which are addictive in nature because our brains can't handle that sort of information when we eat those kind of foods. It's not natural. So it kind of hijacks the brain. And that can just be, for some people, it's just like a bad habit. For some people, it keeps kind of developing into a food addiction. But whether it's a bad habit or a food addiction, it still works on the same neural pathways in the brain. It's just that some people get addicted to food, some people get addicted to gambling, some people get addicted to alcohol, whatever it might be. It's like, for me, I can only get addicted to food, and I think computer games, there's no other substance that I've ever tried. I don't like alcohol, for example, or whatever, that kind of feels appealing to me. So I think there is probably a genetic component, but every human being has the ability to become addicted to something unless there is an impairment in the reward system in the brain. That's my belief. And then we have, I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but there's like the society that we live in now, everyone is so isolated, and that's not how we have evolved. And if we go back quite a bit in time, we used to live with family, or back even further with tribes, etc. Children weren't just depending on two parents that had to work full time and being left somewhere. So we have a lot of childhood trauma. Some isn't very severe, but for some people it can be quite severe. So I think trauma is a spectrum, but any kind of trauma that is underneath can also lead to an addiction, because it makes it literally, if it happens in childhood, your brain will develop in a different way. And if you want to learn more about this, I really recommend that you watch Gabor Mate. He's really good at that piece. But it's very interesting to see how we then become dopamine seekers. We want that reward. So if you're then someone who is prone to food addiction, you're definitely going to go to food. So our society isn't set up for human beings. I mean, it's very comfortable, it's nice, things work, but we're not in our natural environment.
So you believe it all starts with childhood trauma, or not necessarily?
I think for many people it probably does, not necessarily for everyone. I mean, I don't have any childhood trauma that I know of, but having said that, it could be as simple as as far as I remember, I was always into food, and I always wanted to eat. I loved toast, I loved cookies, I loved all the carbohydrates. And I used to go and like, I want a sandwich, or, I want some toast. And my mom was not a mom that liked cooking. So she would say, nope, we're eating in an hour and a half. You can't have anything because then you're not going to be hungry when dinner is ready. And I rather have toast than dinner. Like, let's be honest, I love the carbs. And I would obviously have a tantrum about it. And the thing is, then she would get angry, and that can actually be traumatizing. It's like, if I don't get my needs met and I'm being my authentic self, which is the little kid that is having a tantrum, then my mom will get angry at me. So then we start hiding things, and we kind of start penting up those emotions, and that can then lead to even a worsening of this behavior. So like growing up, I never hid that I was eating stuff. But then when, as a teenager, it started to get a little bit embarrassing how much sugar I was eating, and I would kind of buy it and then hide it in my pocket and eat it in my room when no one saw it. That kind of addictive behavior was happening very early on for me. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but it's entirely possible that those kind of experiences where I, as a child, didn't get my needs met have actually helped just propelling this forward, which I think I would still have got there, judging from my behavior and my propensity to want to eat carbs very early on. But I think it probably wasn't helping.
So when we're talking about food addictions, you did mention carbs a few times, Pim. So we're specifically talking about carbs, right? Or do you actually get a client saying, "Oh, I'm addicted to steak. Oh, I'm addicted to broccoli"?
I haven't
Is it
had
always
such
the
a client
carbs?
yet. Yeah,
That'd be great. Shake their hand.
Exactly. I'm trying to think if I've had anyone who's just like into. I mean, I had binge eaters that they will binge on anything, and it doesn't really matter what sort of food it is. But then there's usually trauma behind binge eating, to be honest. But most people, it's some kind of processed food. So peanuts isn't straight carbs, but that's one that kind of comes to mind, especially in the beginning when I was coaching. I think I had 3 clients in a row that all had either peanut addiction or peanut butter. So that was an interesting one. But most of the, I mean, that is, peanut butter is processed still. So most of the time it's some kind of processed food that we're not used to eat. Well, we shouldn't be used to eating it. So when I'm, yeah, most of the time it's carbs are involved in all processed foods. So that's why I'm talking about carb addiction. Personally, for me, it was more sugar that I was really struggling with giving up. Sure, it was kind of hard to give up bread, but I could do it. But the sugar, not for me.
I have a question, if it's okay. Do we jump in and just ask?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a carb addiction or sugar addiction. So I have this quick question for you. Do you have athletes that have issues like that? Because I'm a runner and I run all the time. I run 7 miles probably twice a week. So I don't have a carb addiction, but I used to. And then another friend of mine and I, type 1s, we were actually bulimic. So have you ever seen anything like that? And I got hold of it, and so did she. She eventually died from it. But what's your thoughts on that, Pim? I don't, or anybody, or I just want to know if that has ever come up. Athletics, bulimia, and
I mean, I don't work specifically with athletics, but I used to be a personal trainer for like
there you
15
go.
years. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would say a lot of my colleagues, they probably had more of a disordered eating in terms of being scared of eating processed foods or crap because you don't want to like not look the part and not perform at your max, etc. But I did have one colleague who definitely she had bulimia and she had anorexia before. And at that time, I didn't know what I knew today. I was studying nutrition at the time. This was a very long time ago. And
wow.
Yeah, I think the thing with athletes, especially where I was working, because we were professionals, so we would probably mostly hide it from each other because it was a very embarrassing and it was a very shameful thing to go around and teach other people how to exercise and how to, eat and then just sit and stuff yourself. And I was surely eating, like, I bought these small chocolates, like bite-sized things to excuse myself and just like, I can have one when someone's looking, and then the rest were hidden in my bag. Like, so if no one was looking, I could eat lots of them. But if someone was looking, it's like I pretended I just had one.
I love that. That's
So,
cute. I like it.
Yeah. Well, it's silly, but I mean, it was embarrassing to me. I didn't want to be that person that was eating it. So, but I did work with some people at the time as a personal trainer that definitely had a problem quitting the carbs. And then when I got more and more into the keto low carb space, and I had many clients as a personal trainer that had like autoimmune issues, all sorts of things, and just trying to tell them to cut out gluten was like banging your head against the wall. So I don't think athletes see their carb addiction as an addiction most of the time because they need to carb load and they need the energy because they're working out so hard, etc. And you don't see it on the outside. I mean, I wasn't I wasn't fat or overweight. Sure, I had a little bit of extra padding, but I was working out so much that it was kind of hiding the problem, if you like. So I think the biggest problem for athletes is to recognize that they might actually have a problem, and they might not even know because they're not even trying to quit. They're just excusing it with, I need it.
Well, you guys are amazing. So just so you know, and have inspired me, and my running's getting better. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, no carbs. There's sometimes. No carbs.
Yeah.
May I just add, I've been listening to Gabor Mate, and what he was, because he really explored the addiction word into the native people in Canada. And what he was saying is that usually the trauma can go back from 2-3 generations before.
Yeah.
So if your grandparents have been traumatized, that will be passed on to the next generation.
That's a good point.
In my case, I realized that sugar was not something that my grandparents would have easily when they were younger. So when the sugar gets available, or the processed food get available easily, it was a way to enrich them. They feel richer. So that's when they were displaying on the table all the cookies, the cakes, and all that sugary stuff. So when we get to our grandparents, I remember that we were like freeloading on those things. And and I think that's more that you eat them because it could be rare, or it could be a symbol of richness. Then you get addicted even if you don't realize it, just because it's there, you're eating it, and your body asks for more. I think it's a how do you say that? Go around.
Vicious
It's
circle.
going around.
Vicious circle.
Oh yeah, it's a circle. So you see it, you want to eat it because it's rare. Then you just have more and easier to get. So you eat more, and there you go. You're in that circle that you cannot stop easily.
Wow, that's a great point.
Well, this is Pim. When you'll know Jo Nifland, Dr. Jo Nifland. When I invited her on this channel, I asked her, so, because I had a grandma, one of my clients was a grandma, and she just had this toddler grandkid. She adored him. She looked after him a few days a week. And she asked me, she said, how often can I give him like sweets and candy? And I said, I don't know, but try not to. Just give him grapes instead or something. But but I'm not trained in food addictions, right? So when I invited Dr. Ifland on the channel, I thought I'll ask her this question, and Dr. Ifland said, "How about never? How about never?"
Wow, that's great.
What would you say, Pim?
If I had children, I would avoid giving them anything processed sugar for as long as I possibly could, because a child's mind is very receptive, is learning very quickly. I mean, an adult will learn very quickly when it comes to being like rewarded with something like food, but a child learns it even quicker because their brains are just primed to learn, like hyper learn things. So if you give it sugar the first time, it would be like, ooh, this is great. I need this again. Then they see a cookie the next time, and they're going to be screaming for that cookie, because it's just their animal brain, the primitive part of the brain that's getting activated straight away, and they will want that cookie. And then the more we give them that, the more that cycles are getting repeated, and eventually they will probably become addicted to the cookies as well. So I see no reason to give kids sugar whatsoever. If they haven't had it, they're not going to miss it. It's when you give it, they are missing it, because that's natural.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. For my daughter, she started to eat sugar when she was going at her grandma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have opinions on grandmas and such. My sister has kids, and I told my sister, I was like, please don't give them sugar when they're children. She was like, oh, just give them a little bit. Well, did she? I don't know. And then I was visiting, and every time they were there, my mom was giving them lots of, ice cream. And when they were leaving, they got some licorice. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't treat us like that when we were kids. Why would you treat your grandchildren like that? It's not good for the health. Yeah, but otherwise they will, complain when he has to leave. But if he gets licorice when he wants to leave, I was like, okay, fine. What about the ice cream? Oh, yeah, but, it's a treat when they see grandma. It's all these excuses, and it's driving me crazy. Sorry, I'm just taking over here because I have a tantrum now.
No, but that's a global phenomenon, Pim. It's everywhere, wherever you go in the world, people are doing that. They're treating their children with basically poison. Let's call it poison. They're treating their children with an addictive substance. But that the realization, the awareness isn't there. Parents aren't told how addictive sugar is, how addictive processed foods are. So perhaps we need to talk more and make our voices heard and let people hear us more and more and more until it sinks in. They realize how addictive these foods are.
Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? If they actually realized it. It's like, so Mariana, you're from the UK. I don't think it's like that anymore, but I lived in the UK for 10 years, and they had this plate model, and they incorporated 10% could come from refined sugar every day, and that's normal. And I was like, are you crazy? I think they have removed it since then, but 10% refined sugar per day, like getting your energy intake from that, is not normal, and it's not part of a healthy diet. It's none of the sort, and it just kind of ticked all my boxes, and I was so angry about that.
Yeah. No, it's come a long way. Now, they put a tax on sugar here.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So sugary things have gone up because they used to be the cheapest thing. And sugar has gone up, and sugary things have gone up. I'm not saying it's unreachable. It's still cheaper than buying meat or definitely fish, for example. But I agree with what you guys are saying, that we're nowhere near the level of awareness, even including myself, about the dangers. I just wanted to ask you, if I may, Pim, as a scientist, specifically, these kind of foodstuffs are the ones that will trigger an addiction rather than, for example, proteins, or, have you ever seen addiction to vegetables or addiction to meat or fish? Or is it specifically carbs and sugars that create an addiction?
Okay, I haven't seen anyone who is addicted to that other than the binge eaters, but they're more into just eating for the sake of eating. They don't care so much about what the food is. Something interesting that happened to me, though, is after I had quit, I started to just like have a bit of salami every evening, which is a processed meat food.
Yeah.
And then I started craving it, and I was sort of having that addictive behavior towards salami every evening. But I would label that more as a bad habit, because then I was like, okay, this is hijacking my brain now. This is becoming a problem, and I just cut it out. And obviously it doesn't feel nice to cut it out, but it was comparatively easy to do. So I would say that, someone has made a comment on my YouTube channel every now and then saying, I'm addicted to steak. Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that. They probably like steak a lot, but I don't think that you can become addicted to steak, because it has to do with, you need to get a huge dopamine reward to actually become addicted, because part of addiction is that you release so much dopamine that it feels really, really freaking good, but your brain cannot handle that much dopamine. So what it will do is that it will downregulate the receptors for the dopamine. So the next time you have the same substance, you get less of a reward, and it will keep downregulate that until you get a normal level of dopamine that you would have had from like real foods back in the days. And when you're there, that's when you build up the tolerance to that food. So that's when you want to continue eating more and more and more, because you're never getting the same high from eating that processed food that you got the first time. And your brain is always going to be looking for it, because it sort of remembers, like, this is how good it felt. This is how much reward I got from eating it. And now I cannot get it because you don't have the receptors to convey the signal further down the line. So we just want to continue eating and eating. And that is never going to happen with protein. So if we take cheesecake for an example, let's say that would release 80% of all dopamine you could possibly release on any given time, whereas a steak might just release 40%. And it doesn't matter how much steak you're eating, it's still just 40%, which is normal. So you're never going to get that down regulation, and it's just always going to just feel pleasant, but it's never going to be like over the top, like orgasmic pleasant, if you like. It's just going to be satisfying. So that's kind of the difference. So I don't think that you technically can become addicted to protein or vegetables or even fruit. I'm not sure that normal fruit, unless you add sugar or whatever, is going to on its own be able to do that.
Can I just say one more thing, and then I'll let the others. What came to my mind now is the word craving. And it's interesting because, and I was, while you were talking, I was just reflecting on the cravings that, for example, when I was pregnant, I was craving for a spicy meat product, Armenian bastarma, which has fenugreek and garlic and all that. And that kind of craving, I think it's maybe something that was missing in me, that was, my body was asking me for it, but it was a healthy craving. You know, it's like when I had COVID, I was craving for curries, you know, spicy food. I don't know, maybe there is a reason for that. But then there is the craving for sugar, which is not really, there are two different, like a fake craving and a real, you know, body craving, which is for your own health. You know, This is what came to my mind.
I want to ask you a question, if it's okay. So we're talking about cravings. We're talking about, you know, things that we develop an affinity for. And more than that, it's like a drug for us at times. But how do we change our mindset? Because you can't change something without changing the same mindset that created it. How do you do that? Do you give them books to read? Do you coach them? What do you do? I'm a coach.
That's the funny part. Yeah, I mean, as you know, changing your mindset is probably the hardest work, the bulk of the work, because going through the process is something that I can easily share, which I do in my free challenges, etc. I share exactly like the steps that you need to do and like the tools that you need to overcome your food addiction. But then it's the mindset that always gets in the way of actually doing it. So what we're working with is, like, first we identify the whole habit loop, which is you have a trigger, so you know what your triggers are. And when you are so if anyone wants to like search on YouTube for the habit loop, they're not putting the second step in. This is something I've added. Then you have thoughts about that trigger. So let's say you go into the supermarket and you will have a thought, I need some chips or whatever. That will then trigger you to have cravings. And that's not included in the habit loop. But we always have a thought preceding the feeling of that craving.
Right.
So it's all around awareness. That's where we need to start, because then we have the thought, like, I want chocolate. Now, I still have thoughts coming through my mind that would be like, it would be nice with some chocolate. And I'm like, no, it wouldn't. I don't actually want it. So it's like a reality check, because now I'm aware, and those thoughts are still there. They're still coming. They're not as frequent as they used to be, but they're not completely gone. I don't even know if they're ever going to be completely gone. But the emotional connection that I used to have with them, that like triggered me and gave me cravings and all of that, that's gone, because I have rewired my brain into doing something different. But they're still popping up. It's just that they don't trigger me anymore. So it always starts with awareness. And then from that awareness, we can start questioning, like, well, do I really want chocolate? Why would I want chocolate? And usually we just have some bullshit reasons, which is, well, it tastes nice, or, you know, it was a stressful day or whatever. And then when we kind of start looking at that, we can see, okay, well, those reasons aren't really good. And we can look at, why do I not want them, and see why. But a big part of that is that I think it's very important for anyone who wants to quit to really figure out what your big reason is. And I really recommend an exercise called 7 Levels Deep, where you're just asking yourself, like, why do you want to stop? Why is that important to you that you do that? And you just keep digging and digging and digging until you get to that emotional reason behind it. Because if you just want to lose weight, that's never going to work. You're like, yeah, I want to lose weight. And then you're like, well, I can start tomorrow. It doesn't matter. I just need cake today. But if it's something that really matters to you, and you can use that as your inner motivation, it's so much easier to just stay focused and do what you need to do to actually get there. So I think there are many parts. Some of my clients have a harder time changing the way that they think about things. Some people just adapt it straight away. So it's just like, I'm one of those people that find it a little bit harder, because I'm very stubborn, and I'm like, this is what I believe, and I want to continue believing it. But the thing is that you can choose to believe whatever you want to believe.
Yeah.
And if you want to believe something different, there are ways for you to pretty much reprogram your own brain and start believing it. And it can take weeks, months, but it can happen. So it just depends on who the person is and how easy it is for them. But it's you can work through that with time.
Yeah, like mantras.
Yeah.
Mantras?
Yeah, like a mantra.
Yeah, I love mantras.
If you want to change your mind, you have to repeat it very often. Then it will work. It worked for me though. Like,
I love that.
And also feel that you are emotionally connected to that. So it's not sometimes with affirmations, people just say things that they 100% don't believe in, and then it usually doesn't work.
Yep.
But if you have if you believe in it a little bit, then you can believe in it a lot. I have one client with a beautiful mantra for her. Her mom had Alzheimer's, and she really doesn't want that. And she just looks at the food and she's like, that's not brain food. I only eat brain food. And that works so well for her, for example. So yeah, I do recommend that for sure.
I want to go back to Mariana's point earlier on about cravings.
Yep.
Let's talk about cravings, because that's a word we hear a lot from people. People just throw it about, you know, I'm having cravings. What I've noticed is sometimes if someone has just started their keto journey, and we can all identify with that because we've all been there. You might have electrolyte imbalance, right? You might have the keto flu. So people just go, I'm having cravings because the body is not fully adapted to burning fat yet. So there's that's referred to as craving. But there's also some deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies, like what I had, because I was a vegetarian. There was no way I was eating enough protein. I was protein deficient, let me put it that way. For 30 years, I was protein deficient. And I craved protein, but I didn't want to eat meat. So when I started introducing meat 2 years ago, actually on my birthday, so I realized I'm actually now craving protein. This is the kind of craving I get. I actually crave protein. I go work out, I do my strength training, I come home and I can't wait for that meat, whatever meat that may be, to be ready, because I crave it. While I'm walking back from the gym, I'm actually thinking of my protein food, because so craving isn't just necessarily a bad thing. It's, you know, we throw it around all the time, but there are different sort of layers of it, right?
No, cravings are absolutely, I mean, I think they are necessary, because if we didn't have any cravings or urges to eat, then we would probably starve to death, because we would be like, I can't be bothered. I'd rather just lay on the sofa, and I can't be bothered to get up and cook something. So I think it's normal to have cravings, but it's the carb cravings that feel so overwhelming, like we just need it or we're gonna die. That's how the brain perceives it. Whereas you're like, oh my God, I can't wait until I get home and I'm going to get that juicy steak. And that feels more, probably, I'm guessing now, but when I think about when I have it, it feels more like excitement and I'm hungry and it's going to be so good. Whereas the carb thing is just like, oh, get me out of here. I just need that because XYZ, whatever, life sucks. And I just need to eat because it's the only thing now that is going to make me feel good. It's very, very different, I think. So if you have healthy cravings for healthy foods, like ride with it. That's just normal and it's good. And yeah, we obviously want to eat healthy foods. So if I had meat cravings every day, I would be super happy. Unfortunately, I don't have that.
That's cute.
We were talking about, what people seem to be addicted to. And you said it's mostly carbs or processed foods. I've been hearing recently quite, in fact, it's last couple of years from Dr. Vera Tarman as well, that it's probably, or what's worse than carb addiction, it's the combination of high carbohydrate, processed carbohydrate and processed fats, which is what you find in processed foods, right? So it's the processed fats and the processed carbs together. And this is why perhaps peanut butter is addictive. I mean, I don't open my jar, it just sits in there until it gets out of date, because if I open it, I'm going to finish it. So I just don't touch it, because if it's open, it's going to be gone. And that's going to wreck my blood sugars for a whole week. So, and I'm type 1 like Terry is. So, we can't, we have to moderate. But it's difficult to moderate. So I don't open it, but I'm fine. As long as it's not open, it can sit in the cupboard. I can look at it every day. So I have the power over it, but once it's open, I can't stop. And it's similar to cheese. I hear it from lots of people as well, right? Cheese as well.
Well, casein can turn into casomorphin in the body. So that's like an addictive substance on its own. So that I think that's why some people find dairy a lot harder to deal with than other carnivorous foods.
Right. Wow.
So how important is it to have support network around you if you want to break a serious, I would say, food addiction issue?
I think
can you do it alone? Just rewire your brain alone, or do you need the support?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do it alone, because that's pretty much what I was doing, but it took me a long time. Having said that, I was introduced to how to do that from my coach, but I didn't hire her for my food addiction or for my sugar addiction. I hired her for something completely different. It just turns out that she's like written a book on the subject, and she used to help people with overeating. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to read that. And I read it, and I was like, well, my problem isn't overeating. I'm addicted to sugar. This is different. So I think it sat on the shelf for like 8 months before I actually did something. And then I was like, I wonder if that could work, And I took a week off work. I tried it, and I was like, wow, this is really simple to do, actually. And it works so well. Why didn't I try it before? But anyhow, that wasn't the question. So I had the tools. I had support if I wanted support, because I could always ask my coach if I wanted to. It's just that I chose not to, because I'm like, no, this is embarrassing. I'm a coach. I should be able to do this on my own, as so many coaches do. And obviously, it was kind of a journey. It took me several years to get to where I am now, which is fine. That's probably what I needed. And it would probably have gone a lot quicker if I had had a coach's support. Now, you don't need a coach necessarily. I do recommend a coach if you feel like you're addicted, because it's so much easier to just go through this. And depending on how disciplined you are and how good you are at, wanting the change for yourself, etc. But the community aspect, what I notice is my one-on-one clients, some of them do great from the start, but a lot of the time people want to work with me one-on-one because they have the mindset of, I cannot do it like without having someone holding my hand, dragging me through, telling me what to do, etc. Now I have a group as well, and those people who go into the group, they are most of the time taking a lot more responsibility for their own results, and they put their heads to it, they study, they do everything, and they actually have quicker progress. Plus, the feedback I've got, because we have weekly coaching calls, is that it's just nice to sit here, even if I don't have anything to bring up, because you guys understand where I am. You understand my disordered thinking around food. I feel like it's safe to actually talk to people. And I think that is such an important element, to just allow yourself to kind of get it out there and have people understanding what you're going through, even if they can't help you necessarily, but just having people that understand you is usually helping people move forward, because it's like, okay, it's not just me, and now I can be brave and take a step forward because I'm not the only one. There are actually more people, and we just feel that support around us, even if the people aren't actually physically around us. It's just the mental part that needs that little push. So for most people, I think it's really important. Now I want to I'm a super introvert. I like doing everything on my own. So for me to like, I've tried like being in groups and stuff, and it's not for me personally. I love my group, but I can disconnect from it at any time. But if I was to be part of a group as my super introverted self, I'm gonna be one of those lurkers, because I want to be able to pull out of that anytime I want to. If I had found a group at that time, I think it would probably have helped me, but was it necessary? That it would be a stretch to say it's necessary, but I think for most people, it would be really helpful to have that community of some sort, or even just like a group of friends that really understand what's happening, but not just friends that are not food addicted, because they won't get it. They would be like, why don't you just quit? Just cut it out. Deal with it. Put your big girl panties on, like whatever. They don't get it, and it's just it's rough to do it on your own.
So how about the support from family? Because someone is suffering severe food addiction, they're living in a family environment. If the whole family are binging on carbs every night, it's difficult, because I'm thinking of an alcoholic, for example, right? You want to break from your habit. You don't want to drink alcohol anymore, but everyone around you every evening is just drinking bottle after bottle. How do you deal with it? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I do have clients that are in that environment, and it's harder. I think it's harder to get started and get over the first hump, but once you're there, it's usually okay. But it's so easy to sit and focus on what everyone else is doing, how unfair life is, why should you have to do it when no one else is doing it, rather than focusing on why you want to do it, when it's like, well, actually I don't want to do it because it looks so nice to just sit and stuff your face with all of these foods. If you can get out of that environment, I would recommend that you do that in the beginning, but there are ways of going around that as well. It's like the tools that I'm teaching you. If you can use them and you can practice them, you can still start rewiring your brain, even if you then go on and eat bread or something. So then we can just like let go of the outcome completely and just start practicing the practice that you need to do to allow yourself to have cravings and not give in to them in the moment, and then just give it a little bit of time, and then you can go and eat it. It's still like strengthening this new neural pathway that you want to strengthen, and over time it's going to feel easy to say no, because you're going to start letting go of it. There are other problems that come up with that when people are doing it, because they're like, well, what's the point if I'm still going to eat it? Because we don't see the progress when it's just like we're actually rewiring the nervous system up in the brain. Of course, we're not going to see it, but it's still important that you do that. So there are ways of getting around that if it's like too much, if you can't do it. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it if you can avoid it. It's just making it harder for you.
I believe some people are more sensible to become addictive always for a lot of things. Could be, like you said, could be food, but it could be alcohol, it could be cigarettes, or it could be all kind of things that you are or become addicted to. So what you're saying is that once you're addicted to the carbs, sugar, even if you work very hard for many years on that addiction, you can fall back into it at any time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do believe so. So the brain is plastic, which means that you can change the neural pathway. So what I'm doing with my clients is that we build a new neural pathway, which will be like the automatic thing that you do. So you feel a craving and then you don't react to it. That's what we want it to be. The old neural pathway where you have a craving and then you go and eat the food, it's never like, it's like if you imagine like cutting your way through the jungle and then you have a path that you've been walking down for 20 years, it's going to be quite good. Like that path is going to be quite wide, but over time it's going to start growing over if you stop walking down there. And that is what is happening to your old addictive neural pathways, that the brain will start prune off those connections to that pathway. So then it's harder to connect with it. It's not as automatic. But I think like the root of it will always be there. So if you go back to your old behavior and just like, okay, I'm going to stop thinking, I'm just going to eat it because it's there or whatever. If you start doing that, then you're going to start connecting those connections again and it's going to come back. But that doesn't mean that it will come back and that you have to be abstinent from everything, because it totally depends on why you're eating as well. And I think this is a missing piece that people don't get. When you give in to a craving, you strengthen this addictive neural pathway. But if I say I want to eat ice cream tomorrow, then I'm not giving into a craving. It's something that I plan to do, and it has nothing to do with the addiction. Sure, I can get cravings from having that ice cream, but I know how to deal with the cravings. It's just that I can eat the ice cream without feeding the addiction pathway, and then I'm kind of safe. So there is a way that you can actually become a moderator, but it requires some intention, and it requires that you never give in to cravings in the moment, because that's the key.
Yeah, I understand. So when you plan, like you have a birthday in 3 weeks or something, and then you've been super good with your craving or addiction, and then at that birthday you're probably going to eat like a piece of cake. So that's not giving up on your effort, it's just planning, and then you go back into your right set of mind.
You got it.
Well, that's good.
This is exactly what I did this year. It was my birthday in February, and I was like, we're going to go out for a meal, and I'm going to have whatever I want on the menu. It was no big deal. It was nothing. I looked at the menu. I had a burger. I ate the bread, looked at the desserts, and I'm like, I don't actually want any of them. And I didn't have any dessert, but I didn't forego the dessert because I was scared of falling off the wagon. I just didn't want it. I was like, it's not worth it because none of this is going to taste that nice. I really enjoyed that burger. I really enjoyed going out and just having a normal meal. And I was prepared. Like, if I have cravings tomorrow, then I'm just going to have to do the work and sit through those cravings the way that I teach other people to do it, and then deal with it. I didn't have any cravings. I didn't have any headaches. I didn't have any obsessive food thoughts. Nothing happened. It was just a meal. It's like completely just a meal. Like, sometimes we get so worked up around it that I think that we obsess about it, and then we get cravings and other food thoughts because we are obsessing so much about it.
Okay.
Which is crazy, but I think that's pretty much what happens.
Yeah, the feeling of shame when people fall off the wagon, right? They're so ashamed. They go, I can't do this. Well, you can actually. That's fine. So just get back up again, and continue. We associate so much, shame and that sense of failure when we don't succeed in something from the first time. As you said, this is a process and you have to work through it. It could take weeks or months or even years. So you have to perhaps be more forgiving and
Yeah.
understand that this is a process. Have you noticed any difference when it comes to food addictions between men and women? Are our hormones, for example, I mean, we're we're all women here, so, and it just happened to be the case. I didn't leave the men out, to be honest. I put a notice, does anyone want to come on this session?
Damn it.
And it all happened to be women. But is there a is there any difference between women and men in terms of food addictions?
I think in general, women tend to gravitate a bit more towards sugar and like sweet things, and men towards savory carbs. But that's not true for everyone. And when you talk about like the cravings, period cravings, I see it sometimes, but I think when we start bringing that awareness to what's going on, you're gonna notice that maybe it's not actually just carb cravings. Maybe it's just like increased hunger. So what I recommend then is like just allow yourself to eat as much as you like, but of the good foods. And that usually doesn't last more than a couple of days, maybe, or 3 days for some people. And then we're over that hump, and it's not the carb cravings, just that our bodies want more food, but we haven't really listened to them before. So we just bunch all the signals down to, yeah, I have cravings, and we don't even look at what it is that we crave. But maybe, maybe you're actually craving fat because that's what you need in this moment to be able to like go through your period, etc. And just give your body more energy and more fat or whatever, and then it's usually fine. So I don't see that as an ongoing problem, but usually like in the first month for some people, they're like, yeah, I did fine for 2 weeks, and then my period came and I couldn't stop myself, and then I went on a binge for a week. It's like, okay, now we know you have a problem. This is what I want you to do next month. You know it's coming up around this time. Just have a look at what's going on and really like notice what's happening. Notice how you're feeling, what it is that you're really craving. And I haven't had anyone just say no, it didn't work. They know straight away, like, okay, yeah, it wasn't as catastrophic as I thought. It wasn't the same as carb cravings. It was actually a bit different. And a thing that women often do is that we want to restrict ourselves how much we're eating. So we're not even willing to go and just munch on everything that we see because we're hungry. So when they do that, it's usually not an issue anymore.
You know that you're in some part, in some moment in the month, you need you're craving for dark chocolate. You just prepare, so you get a piece of dark chocolate that you keep in your fridge. For that moment, you eat your piece of chocolate and you're good. It's not
You
go.
could do that, but also if that is as a response to a craving, that's not going to be helpful for your addictive brain. It's just going to be like,
Okay.
oh yeah, okay, I had a craving, then I got my chocolate. Some people, just because if it's dark chocolate, it might not be something that you feel like you're addicted to, then that could work as a strategy. I just want to be a little bit careful with making that a statement, and that's okay to do, because it could feed into that addiction. So it just depends on the person and the reason why you want to eat that chocolate, etc.
Yeah. It's just that I was listening to Mandy Perez, I believe her name is, and she was saying that in some moment in the month of the woman period, that they need was it potassium, I believe. So I noticed that in some moment I just crave for dark chocolate. So I was wondering.
Yeah, I wouldn't give in to that necessarily, but if it's just like, yeah, I crave dark chocolate for 2 days a month, and then you know that it's gone, maybe it doesn't have to be a problem. Like,
Yes,
maybe it's fine for you to do it. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you.
I mean, I don't like giving in to cravings ever, because I'm very wary that just feeds the addictive pathway in my brain. So sometimes we do have, like, when I know that if I'm sleep deprived, I'm gonna crave things. In which
okay.
case I'm like, okay, today I'm gonna make it an eating day, and I just eat good foods, because that's sometimes easy for me to do than just try and sit with those cravings. Because when I'm sleep deprived, the cravings are never going away, because my body is just like, we are so tired, we need energy. So that's a real thing for me. So then I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna eat, I'm not gonna care, but I'm just gonna eat good food. So that's kind of a backup plan, or like an agreement that I have with myself, that that's just what I'm going to do if that happens.
Yeah.
So I like just being prepared and know what you're going to do and be at peace with what you're doing. And as long as that doesn't cause a problem down the line, why not?
Yeah. Been prepared.
Yeah.
And don't feel that like you have give up or you have failed. Just because when you prepare, it's not a failing, right? You
No, not at all. If you decide I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna eat chocolate for 3 days, like dark chocolate, when I know that I'm gonna crave it, then that's your plan.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Pim, okay, so what are safe foods? What sorts of foods should a carb addict or a sugar addict have in their fridge, so they know they can eat those foods without triggering the addictive behavior?
I'm going to be really boring and tell you that depends on the person. Like any food that you feel like, I need more of that, and you go and snack on it because you can't leave it alone, is a problem food, no matter what that food is. But in general, I mean, we know that protein, fats are probably not going to be a problem. Yeah, some people seem to be snacking on butter sometimes. I've noticed, but in general, like my go-to foods are all like anything that is carnivorous. You might have to cut out cheese if that's a problem for you. I'm not a cheese person, so I very rarely eat it. But and then I have blueberries are also allowed in my brain, and occasional fruit, but I don't usually buy it. But if there is any, then I can have that, and all of that is okay. And then I just, we're creatures of habit. I just eat those foods over and over again, and I don't even have to think about it. But if someone came here, now we don't get a lot of visitors, but when we actually moved in, our neighbor came over with a big quiche, and I was like, holy shit, what are we gonna do with this? Like, do I want to eat it or not? Am I scraping the insides? I would, or not. Like, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do with that. Then you have to just make a judgment call, like, do I want to eat that or not? And if that happens all the time, then you might have to just decide, like, well, I'm not eating anything that people bring to your house, to my house. So it's just like having your own boundaries for what foods you're gonna eat, and know which foods you react to and not. Like, if you can have the food in your fridge without going snacking on it, it's probably a good food for you. That's easy as that.
Yeah, it's interesting you said some people overeating broccoli, because I've heard of fruit. I know some of my clients, for example, can't have, like, they overeat the fruit, and then they're constantly seeking more fruit because of the sweet taste, because now they've gone into a lower carbohydrate diet, so they're still craving. They have those cravings, and fruit can keep that craving going on, on and on. It doesn't stop. So I suggest to them, let's eliminate the fruit, and even the berries. I said, even the berries, let's just eliminate for now, because you just can't stop. No,
I 100% agree with you. There's no point in having them if that just keeps that going, because I mean, I know that people want to quit because it's usually a health thing for some reason, whether that's diabetes or autoimmune disease, or some people just want to do it so that they can lose weight. But whatever your reason is, it's when you actually quit and when you get rid of that constant nagging in your head about eating those bloody carbs, it's like you get to this place where it's just peaceful in your brain and it feels really good. So even if you can maintain whatever you're trying to do and just like eating tons of blueberries or whatever, and you still have that chattering going on in your head, you're feeding that addiction, and you're always at risk of falling back into the old habits where you include the other carbs. But also, I don't think you're getting the full benefit from actually quitting. I mean, I didn't even realize how much chatter there was in my head before I quit. And then when I quit, that was the best part for me. I was like, oh my God, I can think, I can do other things. I can actually focus on things without having to, go and check the fridge every 5 minutes. It was kind of a revelation to me. And if you haven't experienced that, you have no clue what I'm talking about, and you don't know what it's going to feel like. But when that happens, it's like bliss on earth. It's so nice to just be rid of that. And I didn't even know it. And I just want to encourage you, if you're someone who like depends on fruit to keep your low carb diet going, and you feel like I just need to eat fruit all the time, it's what like motivates me to stay with this diet, like please try to quit it, because there's something even better on the other side, which is so freaking awesome.
So we're all in support of the low carbohydrate diet here, or elimination of grains and obviously processed fruits and sugars. I'm going to ask about natural sweeteners or artificial. Well, let's go for the natural sweeteners like monk fruit, stevia, etc. Are they triggering foods for some people?
Yeah, 100%.
That sweet taste, 100%. Huh?
Yeah. I'm having stevia in my egg coffee, but it's the only time I'm using it, unless I'm making some carnivore ice cream or something like that, which I don't do very often. But that's when I'm using it. And if it was triggering me to have cravings all the time, I would just stop it. I'm having egg coffee because it's so easy for me to get that protein in, but I'm not addicted to coffee or anything. It's easy for me to stop it. So some people have told me that, it took me a year or more to get rid of the sweeteners, and then they just automatically got that bliss. Like, oh, my brain stopped, telling me that I should be eating this and eating that and eating that. So I think everyone should probably try it if they still have food chatter. Just get rid of the sweetener, because it keeps the memory of the sweet taste alive, and it keeps your brain wanting that sweet taste a lot of the time. I don't know why it's not a problem for me. I'm just happy that it isn't. And I'm equally happy to not have it. But then I have to eat, more protein, and I find it really difficult. So I rather just drink it.
So how do you have your egg coffee? How do you make it?
I put about 4, maybe 5 eggs, depending on how big they are. Some butter, some salt, some sweetener, and I just mix it with a hand mixer, pour my coffee in, and then it's like a coffee custard, and I just drink that.
Oh, amazing. That's an easy way to get protein in.
Yes, especially for someone like me. I have like 150-gram steak, and I'm like, oh, I can't eat anymore. So, and then you have these people, take Kelly Hogan, like that thin like a stick, and just eating 500 grams of meat in one sitting, and I'm like, I can't even eat that in a day. How do you do it? My body just says, nope, we're not chewing that anymore. We're sick of that. So yeah, I do struggle to get more protein in.
I love how you refer to your body as we. It's like this collective of workers there.
It's the brain, the primitive brain is my brain. Yeah.
So my next question is about fasting, actually. Now, I know from my type 1, because I have a group for type 1 diabetics on Facebook. And I know that some type 1 diabetics, for example, have reversed who were also type 2 diabetics and overweight. They've reversed their obesity and insulin resistance through fasting. No problems at all. It works for a lot of people. I fasted for 5 days with my type 1 diabetes, but it doesn't work for everyone. There are people who try, they go on say 24 hours, 36 hours fasting, and they write to me, they say, I did it. And they're hoping that I would celebrate them. I did it. But then I sat down and I binged on things which I shouldn't have eaten. And I go, let's not celebrate this. Let's not do it again. Fasting isn't for you. You can't be doing that because, as much as the benefits as you're getting from it, then, really reversing the whole thing. And your blood sugars are going to be completely out of whack for days.
Yeah.
And people do that like repeatedly, and they do it every single time. Same thing happens to them. They find themselves binge eating. And I told one lady, for example, I said, but why did you have these foods in the house? She said, I didn't. My house is clean, but something drove me to get in the car and drive to the grocery store to bring all these foods.
Oh.
And I thought, do you know what? Don't do fasting. Don't do fasting. It's not going to work for you. Fasting and binge eating. It's supposed to be fasting and feasting on protein and steak and maybe broccoli too, if you're a broccoli person. But it's not supposed to be fasting and binging on carbs, right? What are your thoughts on fasting?
So I do actually have a client right now who's a binge eater who have fasted in the past, but if she's staying away from food, even as you say, like a 24-hour fast, she will trigger the binge eating behavior. So it's really a problem for her, and we're slowly working on that. But I mean, fasting is a great tool to use, and it's not the fasting's fault that the person is binging. So I don't want to discourage anyone from doing fasting because they are afraid that that might happen. I mean, you need to try to see if that's going to happen, and then you can work on like the behavior that you have when you break the fast. And I say, I mean, obviously it's different for different people why they are having this binge eating behavior, but there's usually a mindset issue going on here. It's combined with the body saying that I need energy, I'm so freaking hungry, I'm deprived. And then we're just like, yeah, let's do it. And we just go for all the things. I like working from like allowance, like use a plan. Like when you're breaking the fast, what are you gonna eat? And you can have a plan. If it's just 24 hours, you don't even have to, be careful with how much you eat or anything. You can just go and eat normally, I think. But also like, maybe I'm gonna be more hungry than that. Maybe it's okay that I'm eating and compensating for the energy that I should normally have had during the fast in the beginning. I'm not saying that you should always do that, especially if you're a type 1 diabetic, because even if you eat a lot of protein, it might, your blood sugar might react to that or whatever. It's a judgment call that you have to make yourself, obviously. But if we can just allow ourselves to listen to our bodies and do what they want, and I'm talking about the body, not the brain, because the brain will say, get chips and chocolate and ice cream and pizza. But your body is going to say, I need nutrients, I need energy. And we just prepare ourselves with a feast, if you like, of good foods. And then that is your plan. And you're like, okay, I'm going to do this fast and intentionally have a feast after that fast and see like what happens when I do that. If you are a person who suffer from binge eating disorder, you're probably going to go on a binge, in which case that's not the method I would recommend. But most people don't have that problem, I imagine. So that's just what I would do, because the restriction, and then we add more restriction after the fast, that can kind of trigger a lot of people into just wanting to kick back and do the opposite, like subconsciously.
Maybe also being prepared, as you were talking about earlier, to Jenny's question. So being prepared, preparing for that feast.
Yeah.
While you're fasting, because that's what I do. I actually know exactly what I'm going to eat, and I look forward to the moment I'm going to start cooking and getting that ready. And I always take a photo of the plate because I want to present it beautifully.
Yeah.
So that when you're prepared, then you're not reaching up. Because I know it from myself, and I don't particularly have, addictive sort of behaviors towards food. But I know that if I'm not prepared, if I don't know exactly what's going to be in my plate, I'm going to be reaching out for the fridge every
Yeah.
2 minutes, and then
Yeah.
find something else. And then by the end of it, I've lost count of what I've eaten and how much
Yeah.
I've eaten. And obviously, Terry's still with us, but her camera is off. But she'll know we need insulin for everything we eat, right? And then I've lost count. What did I just eat? I don't know. I have no recollection because I was just hungry and looking forward to the feast. So
Yeah.
So I prepare myself. I know exactly what's going to be in my plate. And I even think, is it going to be enough? Is that going to be enough protein? Is that going to be enough fat? And can I allow myself 2 blueberries? If it's a yes, then I even prepare the blueberries in a little jug. So I know it's going in my plate.
That's
So
cute.
maybe that helps if you're prepared, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I mean, I don't know what the case is with these people that do that, but if it's like I'm still hungry and I ate everything that I was thinking I was going to eat, and now there's nothing to eat, it's very easy to go to the supermarket and get some crap. So just over prepare. And if you don't want to eat all of it, no problem. Like, we don't have to eat all of it.
I just wanted to come in while you were talking about the behavior. How do we approach the craving? It just resonated so much with me because I have been suffering from claustrophobia, and I've been going through therapy, talking therapy, and that's one of the approaches to the anxiety of claustrophobia, is to not react to the anxiety. So when you get that feeling, and I sort of, it resonated so much because I'm going through that at the moment with the therapy, and it's you talking about the craving and anxiety. I can put it side by side, and it's exactly the same method. This is happening, I'm observing it, and I'm not giving in, because with the phobias it's the same. If you put yourself out, or you give it, you're sort of giving in to the phobia if you pull yourself out of it. So it's the trigger that you were talking about. It's like feeding that trigger, both the craving and the anxiety. I don't know if you've got anything to say about that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know what you're doing in therapy, but I think it's pretty much the same thing. A craving is just an emotion. Like, it's something that we feel in our body. You feel it, like, you can say it, it's like a vibration in your body. I feel like when I have a craving, I know that I'm going to salivate and I'm getting some pressure here. And then I feel like a tension, like a tickling tension all the way down where the food would go down to my stomach. That's what a craving feels like to me. And that's always something that I explore with all my clients. Like, what does it feel like in your body to you? So then when we notice that this is happening, what I want them to do is I want them to preferably just close your eyes so it's easy for you to not like get other input, and then just feel what's happening and focus on that feeling in your body. And that is all we're doing. There is no purpose with this exercise. The purpose is that you get to feel what is happening in your body, and you accept that that is happening. We're not fighting it. We're not trying to get rid of it. We're not thinking about how long it's going to last or any of that. We just want to experience it. And that is what I call sitting with a craving. And you can apply that to any emotion, like anxiety or whatever it is. It might not take the anxiety away. It probably will to some degree with time, but in the moment it might not. But that's how we process emotions. And you can do that with grief. Like, just feel the grief. There's no point in trying to get rid of grief, because we usually want to, well, we don't enjoy feeling grief, but we want to feel grief because maybe we miss someone that we love that died or whatever it is. And that's how you process emotions, but you need to allow yourself to just feel them, because when you're locking yourself out of there, you're going to go crazy, and that's when you're going to go eat. Because it's like, oh, I need to get rid of this because I don't want to feel it. And then we just eat instead. So we eat away our emotions, and it works for all the emotions. It's like when we're eating, when the belly is full, we feel less. And when we're hungry, we feel more. And then all of that bullshit's coming up, and then we want to eat again. So it's better that you just learn how to feel it. And that's like the vehicle to rewiring your brain. When I can allow myself to feel, I don't have to go and eat anymore. because the reason that I'm eating is because I don't want to feel the craving because it's yucky. But if that's okay, I don't have a reason anymore. Then it's just the mental part that we need to deal with, like the mindset. So I think that's probably what you're doing in therapy, or something very similar.
I'm doing both cognitive behavioral therapy and I'm doing Gestalt, which is both are sort of going through that. And it's wonderful to hear you say that, because it's all aligned with, well, we are one body, soul, and mind, isn't it? So it all makes sense, and it's great method.
Yeah, so just apply that to your cravings, and eventually you will get there.
Yeah, 100%.
You get extra practice.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great.
You're welcome.
Right, I think we covered quite a lot. Any other questions from anyone?
No, I got a few questions, but it's been all answered.
Yay.
Yay.
That was great. So Pim,
did it.
before
Yeah.
I wrap this up, why don't you tell, I'll put your YouTube channel link in the description as well. And
Awesome.
and if you don't mind, your email address, so people can reach you if they
Sure.
need help. However, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Probably I mean, I'm very active on YouTube, or very active might be an overstatement, but I'm there every week anyway. But also I have a Facebook group that we do like Zoom weekend hangouts and things like that in there. You can join that one, which is called Food Freedom for High Achieving Keto Carnivores, I think. I renamed it a while back and I haven't memorized the name. And also, if you don't mind, on July 10th, I'm going to run a free challenge on how to master your carb craving. So if anyone's interested in that, you can also just go on the Facebook group or go to my YouTube channel and you will find the links to join over there as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll put
But you can't sign up yet. Sorry.
No, I'll put all the links below, and I'll make sure this goes out before July 10th, so it's still relevant.
Awesome.
One last question. I saw recently on Facebook in one of the addiction groups, I think it was Vera Tarman's group, someone said, would it help us addicts if we start calling these sort of carbohydrates and junk foods something like sick foods? And everyone just jumped in and said yes, and they started like coming up with all these negative words. They said, yes, I call it poison, I call it this, I call it SHIT, and it helps me stay away from it. So maybe there's something there, right?
Yeah, I think it has to do with what you say your brain takes as the truth. So if you call them SHIT foods or poison, your brain is going to be like, that's poison. Like, even though it doesn't believe it, it does believe it. So that's why it's so important how we choose to speak about anything. When we say, I don't want to eat sugar, your brain just hears, I want to eat sugar. And if you say, I want to have food freedom because it's really important for me for whatever reason you found out in the 7 levels deep exercise, then your brain hears that and it's easy to focus on that. So whatever we say, like if you can associate a bad word with the garbage that you usually eat, then it's going to be easier to just not see it as food over time anyway. So I think it's, I mean, it probably works to some extent. It could be interesting when you go around and call it that, but it's up to you.
Okay, well, I can't thank you all enough for your time today. This was a beautiful session with the most wonderful ladies from all over the world. Thank you, every single one of you. And of course, thank you so much, Pim.
Well, thank you. It was awesome to be here with you. And it's so much fun to have different people asking different questions as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I thought I'd make the session fun, slightly different. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.